Hello and welcome on safari, everyone. My name is Scott and I'm teamed up with VM on this scorching hot summer's afternoon. It's about 31 degrees Celsius, 90 odd degrees Fahrenheit, and there's a very, very slight breeze which is helping ever so slightly to keep us cool, but it is very warm and humid. So it's going to be interesting to see what we find for the initial parts of the drive. Water holes and puddles of water like this, the one we're just approaching, are going to be very, very good places to check, and we're in luck. It's nothing very big, but there's a few small but very interesting little animals down here. Closest to us on the water's edge are some tiny little white butterflies. And as VM zooms in, slightly to the right, VM, there we go. Yeah. You may notice that they've got a very slightly kind of minty tinge to it, a very light lime green coloration. I think these are called African mints, and they're enjoying taking a drink of the water in this little puddle. There's also a tiny terrapin or two that I can see floating around. There's a stick VM on the other edge, and kind of on that edge of the pond there's one or two little heads poking out. A little bit to the left. Where has it gone? There it is. Look at how small it is. It's popped up right in the center of the screen. That's probably only about an inch in diameter, or at least its shell would be. It's a tiny little freshwater turtle, essentially, called a terrapin. So the water's where it's going to be at for the initial parts of the drive until things cool down. We are going to be checking whatever water holes do have water in, but there's not too many of them because we are experiencing a drought at the moment. So don't be fooled by the lick of green that you can see. It is abnormally dry for this time of the year. Now, if any of you are joining for the first time, it's important that you know that this is a live safari. So you're with us every step of the way. For the moments of glory when we find animals, and for the moments of desperation when we are driving around with nothing, you get to see it all. And you can also communicate with us if you'd like to send through questions or comments to let us know how you feel.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our portion of the Sunset Safari. You'll be happy to hear that I'm very much on the mend, although I do sound a little bit like I'm about to cough up a lung, but I feel loads better. And we've come to join one of the most exciting things that's happening around us at the moment, which is a herd of exceptionally pregnant wildebeest. Now, I know that this morning you just missed a live birth with Brent, and my plan for the afternoon is to stick around with them. You see that female at the back there? She's panting heavily. I don't think she's quite in the process of giving birth yet, but she is very, very close. She's still feeding, and I imagine that when the proper labor starts, she'll be slightly distracted. And apparently in between, from the sunrise safari and even sitting in the shade, Brian and myself are basically cooking. We heard tell that this afternoon it is 33 degrees. I think just little bleats of calves every now and again. I think that is a heinous lie. It feels like it's somewhere in the region of about 37, 38 degrees. But maybe I'm just exaggerating. I don't know, Brian. You feeling? It's hot. It's hot. It is hot and very sticky and rather sweaty. She's eating. Still, that enormously round belly. By the way, that she's stayed with this female the whole time, even though the rest of the herd is further back into the shade. And she's in for a nasty surprise when the sibling arrives and Mom shows absolutely no interest in her. Luckily, she'll have the comfort of the rest of the herd. But you can see that difference in horn size and color as well. She's much lighter. And she doesn't really have that fully developed mane yet. It's sort of just spindly tufts or scruffy tufts of hair. And the brown on the face is much, much more pronounced. It's always interesting to see how different animals have evolved different approaches. The wildebeest calves are several dozen shades lighter than the females. They're more of a sort of a tan color than the gray-black that the adults have, which is interesting because Impala lambs are born identical miniatures of their parents. But wildebeest calves are slightly different in color. It might be because generally the wildebeest prefer a more open habitat, so their calves need to have slightly better camouflage. Oh, I'm sure this female's thinking about it. That head posture, the rate of her breathing, even the way she's standing. Now, Angela, you wanted to know if she was in labor. Angela, she's not yet, just because every now and again she does nibble in the grass, but I think she's very close. And by very close, I mean we could actually possibly see it happen this afternoon. The way that she's standing, that head posture down like that, that bulging stomach. Hey girl, it's like you heard me talking about you. She's shifting about restlessly and uncomfortably. And even though she stops to nibble every now and again, she's not really feeding like the rest of the group. It's more absent-minded, and she's panting heavily. This is a wildebeest cow that has a chance of going into labor. Whitney, you were wondering about the naming of them. So what are the males and females called? The male is a bull, the female is a cow. The division happens in antelope, and this is an antelope species. Despite the fact a lot of people seem to think that they're related to cows, they are related, but they're all part of the antelope family, so the same as impala and kudu. And the division with the antelope, you'll hear me talking about impala rams, impala ewes, impala lambs. Anything smaller than a female inyala, so any antelope species, is then called ram and ewe, and their babies are called lamb. Anything the size of an inyala male or bigger becomes a bull and a cow, and then their babies are called calves. Linguistically, I don't know why that division has happened. It is just the way it is, and it is the reason it happens at inyala is because there's such a huge difference in terms of their sizes. That's in answer to Whitney's question about naming. The confusion, of course, is what do you call a baby inyala? I still don't know. She's heads up again. Now, my plan this afternoon was to keep checking in with this wildebeest herd throughout the day, just so that we have a better chance of actually seeing a wildebeest birth live. I know that you came really, really close this morning with Brent, but I think I'm going to stick for as long as possible with this female. She might just be panting because of the heat. It might turn out to be a fruitless exercise, but I don't think so. I think she's very close. Even the way that bulge in her stomach, that is her baby, is sort of positioned. I almost feel like I can see ripples. Now, Joanne, who's watching in Michigan, Joanne's one of our regular viewers and was watching the female that was caught giving birth live last year, was filmed by the wildebeest, and Joanne said that the female that was giving birth then walked around with her front legs splayed in a very sort of clear body posture, and we could that is one of the first signs. I've seen animals do that before, and they shift sort of from hip to hip as well, as if they can't quite find a comfortable spot. She might just have been feeling really hot because she is so pregnant, because she's feeding now and looking a bit more relaxed. So it might just be that she was feeling a bit of discomfort in terms of heat. But I'm still going to be keeping, those are the signs that I'm looking for. That strange walk that Joanne mentioned, heavy panting, standing separate from the group is also quite a good indication. And of course, as Rita says, hooves sticking out the back, the tiny little hooves of the baby. That is one of the first signs. The wildebeest, unless it is some kind of breached birth, they will give birth with the front feet sticking out first, and then the nose. I'm trying to make sure, there you go. I'm sure that is her calf from the previous year, just the way that she's following on to that female. Just waiting for them. I don't want to disturb them in any way. They've all settled down further off. The rest of the herd is just in front of us here, hiding away in the shade. But it's a very thick block, and I don't think it's necessary to go crashing through and frighten all the little babies that have just come into the world. They have a tough enough life as it is without us adding additional pressure to them. The nice thing about this particular wildebeest herd is that we've spent so much time with them that they have actually relaxed to our presence. Keep an eye on this female. She's off to my left. Don't worry, not coming any closer. Here's the little tan calves that I was talking about. And James Taylor, you were wondering if Brian is my cameraman this afternoon. Yes, he is. Now, the wildebeest, or Wiem, is the one who's known for having recorded a live wildebeest birth. Have you recorded?
We both recorded on the same day.
Oh, wow, okay. Never mind, we stand corrected. So both Wiem and Brian have recorded live wildebeest birth. Was Wiem the first then? Is that why you got the wildebeest nickname? Okay. It's all coming together now. Parts of the WildEarth puzzle. Stuff that happened before my time. Alright, well, I'm going to stick with this female a little bit longer, which means I have to reposition around, and while I do, let's head and see what Scott's been up to.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm very happy to be involved kind of remotely in Jamie's plan, which is to do a stakeout with these wildebeest. And I said as soon as she might need a breather to go get some wind in her hair, I'd happily take over from her. Won't it be wonderful if we do get lucky enough to capture an entire birth? Brent was just moments away this morning.
Not rotating.
And for those of you who weren't on the Sunrise Safari, we got very lucky and had an incredible black mamba sighting, which is one of the most venomous snakes out here. It was a fine specimen. It was about 2.5 meters long, I would say. And we had a very good quality sighting, which was good fun. And who knows, maybe we'll find another snake this afternoon. We haven't found an African rock python yet this summer. That would be great to see. And just got some feedback from Jamie and Brian, even though I've kindly offered my assistance to take over the stakeout with the wildebeest. They are not interested and do not want my help. They want to claim all the glory for themselves. So let's see what happens, and I do wish them the best of luck. 3 hours with wildebeest in the blazing heat will be quite a feat. Hello. This Cape Buffalo is giving us a serious glare, and they can cast one serious pose if they are not entirely sure about your presence. Who knows why it's so worked up? Not promise you there are no lying around that we know of. So there's nothing for you to worry about. It's the only predator in this area that's really going to cause trouble for big Cape buffalo like this. You'll also see a large hippopotamus lying in the water facing in the opposite direction. There we go, a little bit of movement. Thank you for acknowledging us. Peter, he's been named Peter. Peter in the pan. And here's a red-billed oxpecker. It's looking for an easy meal, either feeding on the parasites, the blood-sucking parasites, the ticks, or actually just gleaning wounds. And this hippo does have 1 or 2 scars on his body. Speaking of ticks, I got covered and probably walked through a nest of what is called a pepper tick. It's a tiny little tick, kind of the size of a pinhead, and they leave a very, very horrible itching bite, and I had about 50 or more on my right leg, which was a surprise to find after the morning safari. But thankfully I managed to pick them all off. Bye-bye buffaloes and hippos. I'm not sure where the terrapins were now. They didn't seem to be out and about in that little pond. Some of you may have seen some there, but I didn't. Robin in Ohio, though, is interested to know how would you tell male from female? And probably a similar way to tortoises, and that is that the males will have a concaved cluster on the undercarriage of their shell, and that allows him to fit onto the female shell when he mounts, so he doesn't just keep sliding off. So that would be one way. If you look at the underside of a terrapin, you'd be able to sex male and female. Other than that, I'm not too sure. I'm not sure if any of you guys know how to tell between male and female terrapin, but I don't. Birchall starting having a little drink here. Sadly, the sun's not really in our favor, so you're not seeing an iridescent sheen. But watch closely, we may catch 1 or 2 sparkles if the sun does get into our favor. Well, VM, I'm going to suggest taking a bit of a gamble. There's a few birds wanting to have a bath just in front of us in the puddle just up ahead of this Birchall starling. So if you just kind of leave the camera in that top puddle there, zoomed in a little bit, I think we're going to get lucky and have a bird bomb into there. There's a woodlands kingfisher that's just had 1 swim there, and they usually have about 4 or 5 swims per bath, where they'll go into the water, fly into a branch, clean themselves a bit, go back into the water. Not this time around though, and I can actually just see it. It's just perched behind us here, VM. Very, very close by. You're going to get an incredible view of it if it doesn't fly, which they so often do. Don't go anywhere. Awesome, look at this. Hello. We got you. Not swimming, but sweating, rather. And as you can see, it was panting and continues to pant now, having its beak open. So I was only kidding by it sweating. That's its equivalent form of sweating. Obviously, sweating is not possible when you've got all those feathers. Beautiful, beautiful bird, the woodlands kingfishers, that electric turquoise blue. And the bright red beak, at least the top half of the bill is bright red. And I love that little black eye stripe. Watch closely, I think it may want to take a quick flight. Let's see what happens. No. So its name is misleading, and even though it's a kingfisher, the only reason it's next to this puddle is to keep cool. And interestingly enough, most of the kingfishers in this area actually eat insects. They don't rely on fish. So their name is quite misleading, and there's only three kingfishers that we get in this area that will actually eat fish: the malachite, the pied, and the giants. So there is a chance we get another one called the half-collared, but very rare. That also eats fish. Good. Now, for those of you who may be joining for the first time, to give you an idea of the drought conditions we are experiencing at the moment, there's a very pretty bird running down the hill here. I just want to get VM to show you a glimpse of. Look at how quick it is. Making VM's job a little bit tricky, but great job there, VM. And it too is panting. Its beak looks open. Bright blue head. The helmeted guinea fowl. Interesting that it's alone. They usually pair up at this time of the year, focusing on future generations. Well, who knows, maybe its mate is somewhere nearby, or maybe it's had an unfortunate end. Now, as I was saying though, just to give some of the new viewers an idea of how dry it is this season, this waterhole last year was considerably fuller than it is now, which is empty, as you can see, and there's even enough water in it for about 5 or 6 hippo to live here. Now, as you can see, bone dry. There's a graveyard of some catfish in the center there, where they had an untimely death. So that's the situation we're facing. Not good for the herbivores, not too bad for the predators, and there's quite a lot of water around the Sabi Sands, so thankfully the animals here don't have to worry too much about drinking, but it's more about food for the herbivores, because the trees and grass aren't getting much water, they aren't growing. So the food for the herbivores is becoming a problem. Drinking water isn't the biggest of issues. Like I said, there's a lot of little water holes that are pumped with water for drinking. And I guess that just means that the predators are going to have lots of weakening prey to pick on in the coming months, a time of plenty possibly for the predators. The herbivores, not so fortunate. Well, I'm surprised you haven't been called back by Jamie and Brian for their wildebeest birth, but I figure it may be some time before that call happens. They'll just be baking in the sun now as we have the wind blowing gently over us as we peruse the African wilderness. In terms of predator updates from last night, not too much was going on this morning, or at least not that we could figure out. No signs of any lion. Karula, a female leopard, could still be around. I'm going to head into the area where Brent had her last tracks this morning. See if we can't rustle anything up. But no immediate clues to go on from this morning, which actually makes it quite exciting. I guess that's what makes every safari exciting, the fact that we just don't know what is going to happen. And the surprise sightings, just like the sighting of the black mamba this morning. And I know Paul and Susie have sent through such great comments of how much they enjoyed that unique sighting. It's not only about the stars of the show that we see on a more regular basis, but also these kind of unexpected sightings. Seeing that black mamba slither so quickly through the bush was remarkable, and that final shot of it going down the termite mound was epic. And I think we all owe VM a round of applause for not only finding the snake, but also for managing to keep the camera on it as it was moving at some frightening speeds. Okay, everyone, now don't get excited just yet. We are sending you to Jamie. There's not a wildebeest giving birth, but she just would like to tell you what is going on there. See you later.
I'm still with our wonderful wildebeest herd, giving them plenty of space in this thick block, just because I don't think, as I said, it's fair to pressure them in any way, especially with so many pregnant females and little calves. So we're just taking what view we can get at the moment and examining all the possible females for any signs of labor. So far, I think the closest we've come is the female that we started with. She's at the back of the group now, the other side, but I will be keeping an eye on her. Now, if we get to see her water break or see any signs of her water breaking, we've got about somewhere in the region of about an hour, apparently. That's what Brian said his last live birth. That's about the time scale or the time frame that they have. So, Anne, you were wondering how long it takes. Of course, it depends on the individual concerned and whether or not they have any problems such as a breached birth. But for the most part, that labor process has to happen as quickly as possible so that the female concerned isn't a threat from any predators. And what's fascinating is you find that they have a peak birth rate around this time of day. And that makes absolute sense because we all know that predators at this time of the day in these kinds of temperatures are resting in the shade somewhere and not really thinking about hunting. The only real exception to that is leopards on the odd occasion, but even they will be resting up. Well, Vicky, you think that the odds of a live birth are in our favor. I agree with you. That's why I am rotating around each individual member of this herd. I'm going to be watching them like a hawk. I'm going to stay with them for as long as absolutely possible because I really think that they're going to, especially that particular female, I think that they are thinking about giving birth. I'm keeping an eye on this one, although at the moment I honestly can't even tell if it's a male or a female, just the way that it's standing, but it looks like a pregnant female as well. Not panting as much as that other female. I'm quite tempted to move around and find her again. I feel like it may have been my imagination, but I thought I saw some ripples of contractions moving down her side. You can see the thick vegetation that they've found their way into, and pushing through and making a noise is not something that I'm going to do, but the road is just here, so let's see if we can loop around and catch up with her again. I really, really think she's coming close to popping out a baby. And it absolutely makes sense for her to do it in the next hour. Alrighty, well, while I shift around and get another view of her, let's see what Scott's up to, and I'll be back with you very shortly.
Welcome back, everyone. There's two very pretty birds. Well, there were two no, they're gone. There were two grey-headed bush shrikes hopping around this acacia tree. Now some Aramark babblers are laughing at me because the birds that I was trying to show you have flown off. So that's what you could hear there. And the bush shrike's a bird that we don't get to see very often. So I just thought I'd try my So we're not too far from the Buffels Hook waterhole. That is going to be our next destination. It'll probably take us about 10 minutes or so to get there, depending on what we bump into along the way. Good afternoon, Sandy in British Columbia, and thank you for expressing your concern for our skin with this baking sun. And Sandy, not to worry, Jamie and I were actually both chatting about the harsh effects of the sun just before we headed out, and we both religiously apply sun cream before we head out. VM, though, has just admitted that he doesn't, so we need to start keeping an eye on VM. But I know I don't take any chances with sun, and I use a very strong 50 factor in the afternoons. But thank you very much for your concern, Sandy. This is the saving grace for the afternoons. A frozen 2-litre block of ice. And what's remarkable is that this block of ice stays cold for almost the whole 3-hour session, even if we keep adding extra water into here, which is what we do. It's scary how much water you can go through in an afternoon out here. Easily 3 or 4 litres. Good afternoon to Jessica, who is concerned not for my skin, but the skin of the hippopotamus. I was wondering what would happen if the hippo's puddles of water dry up. What would they do? Well, they would suffer, but they would be able to lie up under shady areas. That's not a bad alternative if there's no water around. And they're quite hardy. I know in certain areas of Africa it gets very, very dry every year, leaving hippos stranded out of the water for a couple of weeks or months. And they can handle it, but it obviously has its effects and takes its toll on the hippos. But they, like I said, will usually just seek out shade as the next best alternative for their sensitive skin. Genevieve in New York is showing that she's quite a seasoned safari goer and is wanting us to show a small parasitic plant called a mistletoe. Quite applicable for this time of the year with the festive season tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la ahead of us. And I'm not sure of actually where any are off the top of my head, but they like to grow in the marula trees quite often in this area. And what's interesting, Genevieve, is that, as you said, quite a few birds will feed on the sticky fruits and seeds of the mistletoe plants. But that's how the mistletoe plant disperses itself. It's got a very, very sticky red seed or fruit that sticks to the beak of a lot of birds that try and feed on it. And when the birds land on the next tree and wipe their beak to get rid of that sticky seed, it lodges onto a branch, and that's where it starts growing. So it taps into the actual host tree that it's deposited on by a bird that cannot swallow it. And Genevieve, I'll do my best to keep an eye out for one for you, and maybe we'll get lucky and have one in flower, or that is fruiting with those seeds, and maybe we'll get to see a barbet would be a likely bird that would distribute it. Maybe Jamie will know where some are, and she can maybe keep an eye on quarantine as she sits with the wildebeest very patiently. So yeah, maybe we should team Jamie up on this, or it can be added to this afternoon's sequence of challenges between the guides. She's going for a wildebeest birth. I'm going for leopard cubs. I'm going for gold. Karula's going to come out and show us her leopard cubs. We've got no idea that she's got cubs. No speculations that she might be having any, but that's what I'm going for. To trump Jamie's wildebeest birth that she is going to get in about half an hour's time. But the mistletoe is still up for anyone. afternoon to Barbara, who would like to know what is one bird that I would really like to see. And the first bird that comes to mind today, it always varies from day to day with me, Barbara, but today it is the African shoebill, a prehistoric looking bird that is an aquatic hunter. And I sadly don't have a picture of one, I don't think. Maybe I'll be able to find one on my new bird app. But very cool looking bird, the African shoebill. Now, this is not a good example of not texting whilst driving, but out here on such quiet roads, I think we can take the risk. Liam, keep an eye out for any elephants, please. So, we don't get shoebills in South Africa or Southern Africa. And there's not one, sadly, on my bird app. A very cool bird, and like I've said once and like I've said before, hopefully our Safari Live family will grow by all of you spreading the word, and the more we grow, the more places we'll go to, and maybe one day we will go out and seek out the African shoebill, Barbara. Wouldn't that be an awesome adventure? Once we start moving to different destinations, then you'll see your bird list starting to grow quite drastically, not being confined to one little area. Some buffalo tracks heading straight down this road towards the Buffelshoek waterhole, which we're only a couple of 100 meters away from. Another seasoned safari goer, Jeffrey from Texas, is inquiring about the one lone sausage tree here on Djuma and would like to know how the sausages are coming along. Jeffrey, I will come clean. I haven't taken a close look at the sausages yet, so I don't have a clue how they are going. And if we weren't so far away right now, I'd go straight there, but maybe I'll be able to incorporate that into our next destination after the waterhole. It is. It's done. Jeffrey, the next destination after Buffelshoek Waterhole will be the sausage tree, to go and monitor the sausages, which we should have been doing all along. We've been skipping a beat there. One of my favorite trees, the sausage tree, Jeffrey, so it's a pity there's only one here. Some interesting tracks on the road. Sorry if we got excited as I jammed on brakes there. Sadly, it is not the track of an anaconda or a python. It is where an elephant has dragged its trunk. And not easy for you to see, but there are a few large pads of where the elephant's big round feet have depressed into the sand. Also, python tracks will be caterpillar-like or rectilinear and often be a dead straight track. They move, like I said, in a caterpillar-like motion, not in a serpentine motion. Or a slithering motion like the black mamba we saw this morning. Looks like, I haven't had a very close look, but it looks like his tracks are sadly heading away from the waterhole, and we are very close to our northeastern boundary, so I don't think we're going to be able to track down this early. There's also a lot of impala tracks on top of his tracks, indicating that it wasn't just a few moments ago that he moved here. Hello Christina, and thanks for sending your question through. And she's interested to know how will guests react to snakes when they see them out on safari. And I guess it all depends on the specific set of guests, Christina. I guess it's fair to say that most people, though, are quite nervous of snakes, but if you play your cards right, you can convince a lot of your guests to not worry and not be too terrified whilst on safari, and it's actually one of the major credits or major responsibilities or tough roles that guides don't really think about when getting into the industry, and that you have to be able to convince people that it's not all about death and destruction out here, otherwise they're going to have a terrible safari and you're going to be the safari guide who led their terrible safari. So you learn how to try and convince people who may be terrified of certain things to try and calm down and see the benefits and the realities that death and danger are usually the last thing on the animals' minds. It does depend, though. I'll never forget, I had one thankfully I didn't just bend down and look into the hole. I waggled the bottom of my shoe next to the hole, looked at the bottom of my shoe and saw that it had been covered in spray from the cobra. So that's why it's good not to look in holes where snakes have slithered, because you may get sprayed in the eyes. So thankfully that wasn't the case, but a good example of how one individual guest did get terrified by the sight of that Mozambican spinning cobra, and she actually hit the deck and really hurt her hip quite badly, so she was an unfortunate one. But usually no major problems. The buffalo tracks that we saw heading here, obviously still applicable because we can still see quite a lot of them here, and it's not uncommon for big old buffalo bulls like this to relax in muddy wallows like this during the heat of the day to try and keep cool. That's all I would be doing if I was one of them. Sadly, it looks like the pair of Egyptian geese that live at this waterhole, which VM's just panning across to now, have all moved off. Well, sorry, apologies. It's so hot I'm battling to string a sentence together here. They haven't moved off. They have lost all their goslings, it appears. I'm guessing these are the same two that we usually see here. They started with 7. The last count we had was 4. And now it looks like 0, sadly. So, unlucky parents. I'll have to start again. So blacksmith lapwings are chip, 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 calling. And that's the one kind of right in the center of the pan that I'm zooming into now. And the name is derived from the sound being similar to a blacksmith working on his anvil, tinkering bits of metal. The woodlands kingfisher now joining in. Oh, that little blacksmith lapwing just bomb dived the Egyptian geese temporarily there. Nothing too serious though. Got a little bit of competition between those two. I'm not too sure exactly what about and why everything's getting worked up now. What's going on? Those Egyptian geese and a lot of birds are beginning to alarm call. Everything's looking quite alert. I can't see any predatory birds flying overhead. That would have been an obvious kind of guess as to why the birds are all dancing about there. Maybe just a false alarm. I know somebody was asking to see thickney just the other day, and I've just spotted some water thickney. They're just at the water's edge in front of, or kind of in front and behind of that Cape buffalo that's out of the water. So whoever was asking for a thickney, I'm not sure if it was the spotted or the water thickney. These are the water thickney that we get here around the water's edge. Well, there we have it, and it sounds like Jamie would like to give you another update on what's going on with the wildebeest.
Most of our herd have come out onto the open space of quarantine. Guys, there are 6 new arrivals in this herd. 4 of them are with us now. The other 2 are further back with that very pregnant female. I've left her for the moment. I took one last look, made sure that nothing was happening, and then I followed this group so that we could have a look at the adorable little new arrivals. And I'm pretty sure one of them is the one that you saw born this morning, because the female still had matted marks under her tail. Look how cute they are. Those long, skinny legs. Now, we've had a really sort of dry season, and it's been tough for most of the antelope, and most especially for the pregnant females. And Barbara, you were wondering whether wildebeest can abort their babies in times of great stress, or whether there's any antelope species that can. And the answer is not consciously, but if nutrition levels were any lower than they have been at the moment, then yes, there's a distinct possibility that a lot of the females would abort. This year they've been okay, they've just made it through. Things were touch and go. Oh, it's exhausting growing up. Got to rest in the shade as often as possible. So Barbara, not consciously, but definitely something that physiologically does happen. If this dry season continues, let's say we only have another couple of really big rains, maybe we only get 100 mils, maybe even just 200, and then we go through our next dry season, so we go through winter again. By next year, this time next year is when we're really going to start seeing the biggest problem with the pregnant females. There, she's looking very round as well, also panting and rocking in the heat. The fact that our heavily breathing female hasn't accompanied the rest of the herd onto quarantine also suggests to me that there is a very strong possibility that she's thinking about giving birth soon. We'll head back around and check it, but as we discussed earlier, we have about an hour's leeway from when it starts to when the baby comes out. So there's plenty of time. These babies are adorable. Now, we're really nice and happy out in the open. We're able to see them clearly out on quarantine. But Elaine, you were wondering why it is so open and whether or not it will stay that way. Elaine, it's an artificial clearing. It has been deliberately made, and it will stay that open because it will be maintained. Here come the other 2. Oh, yay. How wonderful. Gambling their way up. Oh, there are some tiny babies in this herd. You can see that vast color difference so clearly. And the reason that it is maintained is it's all part of a management strategy to create these open clearings that bulk grazers like these wildebeest enjoy. And we know that they do, because this is where they've spent the last few, or at least the last few weeks in time leading up to their birth. And this is where pretty much you had them last year. Hey, Brian. Yeah. The other side. Yeah. So they do enjoy it out here. It means that they can see any kind of potential threats coming, but they've also got some nice grazing potential. Oh, what's happening, little ones? What's going on? Bit of disruption. I don't think our female came along with that group. Did you see her? I didn't see her. All right, well, once we've finished looking at these guys, we'll loop around back to where she was, because I don't see her and I don't see her calf, her sub-adult calf. Hello, little monsters. Are you cute? So wobbly. Is this the one that you can see an umbilical cord on a couple of them? There you go. That's definitely one of the newest ones. You can see that umbilical cord still dangling. Oh, and what an overwhelming world it must be. All of a sudden, You burst into this world of heat and light, and you've immediately got to stand up and walk, because if you don't, you're going to get eaten. We saw that. Oh, sometimes you just have to lie down, though. We saw that, or at least I heard about the one that got butted by the buffalo within its first 45 minutes of life. That's tough out here. And the protection of the herd is very, very important. Oh, up again. We saw that. Oh, sometimes you just have to lie down, though. We saw that, or at least I heard about the one that got butted by the buffalo within its first 45 minutes of life. That's tough out here. And the protection of the herd is very, very important. Oh, up again. But whether or not I canoe it is a matter for time to tell. I don't think it's possible to canoe anything out here. Is that too much of a stretch? Probably. A little bit. Yeah, Brian says a little bit. Oh dear. But it is so nice to see them. They've actually been really well protected out here on quarantine. Funnily enough, they found themselves in the middle of a big cat vacuum. Apart from Karula wandering around, we haven't really had any signs of lions coming around to Juma. Oh, meh. Are you bang? Are you making a noise? Discovering your voice. Hey, Wobbles? You can see that right front leg still shaking slightly. And of course, like the impalas, born with disproportionately long legs compared to the adults, because it's vitally important that they're able to keep up with the herd. There's a very pregnant female wandering behind. I don't think she's had her baby yet. But Whitney, you were wondering if two cows are pregnant, and going into birth at the same time, will they separate to not sort of draw attention to each other? And the answer is, I think that a wildebeest's natural instinct is to be... Hello, baby. Sorry, Whitney, I'll be with you in one moment. I just want to see what this little crazy one is going to get up to. Oh, there's Mom being a little bit defensive towards a sub-adult that got too close. And she's going to do the same thing to this female if she comes any closer. Very, very protective. There you go, see? Just shaking her head as a warning. Hello, baby, you look dazed and confused.
Hello.
Well, that's a ridiculous sound. I'm gonna dash off. I think they're heading towards the dam, actually. That's a ridiculous sound. Whitney, they're going to, I think a natural instinct for all of the females is to separate away from the herd just a little bit, because they feel so vulnerable and they don't want anything near them, even another member of the herd. Especially because sometimes pregnancy hormones seem to spark something unusual in the responses of the other adults. They tend to get overexcited. We'll try and reposition so we can watch the antics of that ridiculous little calf making all of those funny noises. I'm just wondering whether that female that walked past wasn't our pregnant one. Hey, wildebeest, so you're going for a drink now, huh? Meh. Ridiculous. seeing them with the rest of the adults, you see the stark contrast in terms of colouring. And I was discussing that earlier, but Andreen, you're also noticing how incredibly different the colouring is from the calves to the adults. And I was discussing the reasons why possibly that might be. I think personally it's because wildebeest tend to favour more open areas and more grassland areas, so the darker or the lighter colour might be better camouflage, but that is really supposition more than anything else. I don't know the exact reason. It's just interesting to compare them to, because we're obviously seeing all of those impala births happening at the moment. It's interesting to compare the two. And impalas come out perfect miniatures of the adults. Whereas wildebeests are completely different colours. And I don't know whether that's just a habitat difference. I suspect it might be. That one's also got a very dangly umbilical cord. Oh, but you are so cute, you lot. Oopsie. Oopsie, nearly fell over the road. Paul made a good point as we listened to them bleat after their mothers. Paul, you're right, they want to keep as quiet as possible and not attract any of the big cats making that sound. Luckily, as I was saying, there don't seem to be that many big cats around, but there's a hyena den about 500 meters that way, and there's a hyena den about 500 meters that way, and they're smack bang in the middle. And hyenas will definitely go for young wildebeest calves. This family's going towards the dam, but I just want to go and loop around that area and just check that that pregnant female did go with them and that she's not still hanging out there. I suspect she might have been the one that moved in front of that female and calf when I said the female was being protective. But I just want to check that. We know where they're going. We're not going to lose track of their whole herd. Let's just loop around and go and check. I'm sure they're going for a drink though, so keep an eye on the dam camera. Not buffalo to show you.
Well, as you can see, we have got into quite a good spot to show some close-up views. We've moved across to the other side of the waterhole. We've been playing with that funny little contraption on the front of the vehicle over here. It's a virtual reality rig, which basically means it films 360 degrees, and one day you'll be able to watch this clip, hopefully, that we've just done, or that we're currently actually still filming now, and you can choose where you'd like to watch, whether you want to look back at VM and myself or ahead at the buffalo. You choose where you want to look. So we're playing around with this new equipment. Really exciting stuff. I did hear 2 helmeted guinea fowls. Alarm calling. A sudden surge. Sounds nothing like that, but that was my attempted helmeted guinea fowl call. Anyway, I was hoping a leopard was on its way to the water's edge for a drink, but no luck. So I'm not too sure what to do. We may do a bit of a stakeout here. It sounds like Jamie's stakeout is working out very, very well. And happy to hear that it sounds like you've been having some great views of all those young calves frolicking in the clearings. Good news. And we're thinking of maybe adopting a similar strategy to Jamie. The sit and wait technique. VM has just found a bird of prey. Oh, what are you? Fork-tailed drongo chasing it. I love it. We saw it this morning as well. What bird of prey is that? Oh, difficult to tell from here. So I'm not even going to hazard a guess. It looked like an eagle, but that's as far as I'll go. Maybe a step or a lesser spotted. It's too far to tell now, though, sadly. Well, what's interesting is the one buffalo here on the left, he's coming up to investigate us. I'm not sure if he can possibly smell something in the vehicle. He's just kind of gone back to ease now, but he was staring very intently at us. Not too sure what that was all about, as he chews the cud here. Well, there's some wonderful news that's just come through from Christine in North Carolina. And Christine, very, very happy to hear that you are busy planning or have planned your safari out to visit us here in the Sabi Sands next year. That's such wonderful news. And for those of you who are new to the Safari Live experience, it's important that you know that quite a few of the viewers actually come out and get to explore these very same places that we're exploring right now in the flesh. So, Christine, great news. Words of advice, kind of plan accordingly. Even we can help you with, if you let us know exactly what time of year you're coming, we can kind of let you know what weather conditions to experience. But at the end of the day, Christine, the most important thing to remember when going out on safari, especially if it is your first time in Africa, is just to be open-minded and take whatever Mother Nature presents to you. That is the beauty of being on your first safari. I mean, just there's so much to see and absorb that to make a list of long things that you hope to see or hope to do can often be a mistake, and sometimes it's best to just go with the flow. Once you start going on further safaris, if you go on a second or a third or a fourth safari, that's when you really need to start fine-tuning I feel your safaris, because you really can get so many such different experiences in different parts of Africa and see different animals. And my biggest suggestion would be, once you've been to one place, to try and go back to another, as tempting as it may be to go back to the place you may first go to and fall in love with. Good, but good news, Christine, and I look forward to meeting you sometime next year. Interesting question through from Laura, and she's asking whether there's any specific reason why we don't see the lion going after the wildebeest as often as we see them going after the buffalo. And it's probably because there's not as many wildebeest around, at least not in the winter months. In the summer, they certainly are more common here in this part of the Sabi Sands. We see more of them in summer, and they will get hunted in the summer. Some remains of certain wildebeest that we got to know, and certain, because there's not many wildebeest here in other parts of Africa where wildebeest are more common, lion would actually probably prefer to hunt wildebeest than buffalo, because it's an easier meal, not as big, not as dangerous, but still going to be big enough to feed quite a few mouths in a pride. So wildebeest is perfect size prey for lion, and if there were more here, we would see them hunting them more readily.
So let's just wrap the VR recording.
Okay, well, we're going to finish off our virtual reality recording now, and while we do that, we're going to send you across to Jamie and the wildebeest.
The wildebeest did all come down to drink, and in that whole process, this little guy appears to have quite possibly mislaid mommy. I'm sure is going to be calling. Here comes one of our newest ones back for another drink. Oh. She's trying to get a nice position to drink and chase away the others. Oh, little one, be careful of buffalo. Watching the hardy-dar out of curiosity. What's that, baby? Come on, you better find your mom. Don't run into the buffalo, though. That would be a very bad idea. If we've learned anything, they're grumpy. Look at you go. Oh, so clever. I think running around just for the sheer pleasure of it, stretching and strengthening legs, not bleating, so it's not out of panic because it's lost mom. Bounce, 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 and back again. Oh, look at you go. Jeepers, that's fast. I think mom's come to try and find it. Here's mom. Looking a little bit concerned. There we go. Come to collect her errant baby. She just gave a very gentle grunt, as if to say, hey, come. I imagine that losing your baby at the waterhole must be like losing a child in a shopping centre. Incredible. Stomach is hanging, her spine is sticking out because of the way it's positioned. So close. But she's still drinking and she's still with the rest of the herd. So that's interesting. That female went running up to the calf. I think the calf went with the wrong female, because that, I think, is mom. The way that she went running up, making little contact calls.
Yeah.
Yep. No. That's definitely mom. I think there was some confusion there between calf and mother. We've got this wonderful wildebeest herd that we're getting to spend time with. But Pamela, you were wondering how many there are in the Sabi Sands. Pamela, I honestly don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say somewhere in the region of about 30, 40 herds, but probably more than that. I really honestly don't. Bouncing baby, running all over the place. Prepare yourself for an entire afternoon of wildebeest sighting, because that is my plan. I'm still convinced that that female is really close to giving birth, and I want to stay and watch her. It's the thing about wildlife, try that again, let's try and get the words in the right order. Live wildlife filming is some of it's a risk, and some of it is patience. And it may or may not pay off, but at least we get to spend some time, and we probably learn something in spending 3 hours of watching the dynamics of this wildebeest herd at play. Stop here for, oops, did a bit of a roll there. Here's one of our newest babies. Now, if it's a female, it'll probably spend the rest of its life in this herd. I love that little contact call. But if it is a male, then it's going to have to head out and start searching for its own territory. And Chantel, you were wondering how old a wildebeest must be before it can leave its mother. Oh, that one's also got a little umbilical cord sticking out. Chantel, within a couple of months they're weaned off their mothers, And I'm talking at about between 6 months and a year when the mother stops lactating. She cannot afford, given the strains that are on her body, she can't afford to lactate for too long. So if the mother is killed by something like a lion or a leopard, or unlikely to be a leopard, but something like a lion during that time or after that time, the calf will be able to survive. But as we're seeing with that pregnant female, even a year-old sub-adult will still stick around with mom for a while, if it can, before she has her next calf the next year. So it's about a year that the calves spend around their mothers. All right, Mommy, you go ahead. I was a little bit worried about the calves around the pan with those buffalo, and Gracie, who is 8 years old, Gracie was saying that those buffalo had better behave this time around or Brent will have to put them in a timeout again. And luckily they did this time, otherwise I would have had to send Brent to go put them in a timeout. Alright, well, we reposition and stay with our wildebeest herd, as is the plan for this afternoon. Don't say you weren't warned. Let's head across to Scott and have a look at his guinea fowl.
What an awesome view this is. And we so often hear these birds calling, but we seldom get to show them to you. Not at least from a wonderful low angle like this. Right. We rolled back and got you a little view just in the nick of time. A few seconds before Jamie linked to us, they disappeared out of shot. Always a moment of terror as that happens, and the content runs away or flies away. Oh, this is good news. This is my first foam nest of the season, and that big white ball of foam was made by a frog called the foam nest frog. And what the female will do will be that she beats her legs together and excretes a certain kind of liquid that froths up into this big nest, and the males will clamber all over her. Sometimes several males will be clambered in and around her while she's creating this foamy nest, beating her eggs, at the same time laying eggs into the nest that the males are then fertilizing. The tadpoles will then develop in the eggs in that foamy nest, and eventually they'll be big enough to and heavy enough to drop through that foamy nest, bloops, into the water below and start growing up as tadpoles and then into frogs. Now what can happen is that these small little mud wallows like the one we're looking at now can sometimes dry up in the process of the eggs maturing, and the tadpoles can plummet to a dusty death. So that is a reality, but hopefully it doesn't happen. It's, like I said, a frog called the foam nest frog, or a grey tree frog. Just seeing something, I could just be seeing things in the tree that I just want to double check. I thought it was a snake. Well, initially I thought it might be a frog, then I thought it was a snake, and now I don't think it's anything. Beautiful big knobthorn tree up there that would have been killed probably by elephants many moons ago. It would have stripped off the bark from the base, and now it's dead. Home to some squirrels. I know some squirrels live in there. There's probably a few other birds that nest in cavities in the trees there. There's two fork-tailed drongos that you can hear shouting now. Their robotic call. Oh, cool. this is a surprise, right below the foam nest, and we all would have seen this earlier, but I don't know if anyone noticed. But there's an animal that we all would have overlooked, as VM showed us where the tadpole plopped. Take a closer look here. A crab. A freshwater crab. Well, we very seldomly see crabs here, and what I do know is that they can lie dormant for the dry months of the year in small caves, and then come out whenever there's rain, capitalize on the good times, and then sit and wait patiently for many months until the next water arrives. Imagine living a life like that. Great stuff. Well, I think it's time to continue. It'll be good to monitor that foam nest. And hopefully there'll be some tadpoles swimming around that puddle soon. Aha! Well, it sounds like even though Jamie is doing a stakeout with the wildebeest, she's managed to find you another animal that likes to roam the African plains.
And just to complete our baby-themed afternoon, I couldn't resist showing you this gorgeous little fluffy baby zebra and its mom. Perfect miniature, complete with the pattern of stripes that it will have individually unique to it for the rest of its life. Never fear, the wildebeest are still around. Hey baby, come back here. You were so nice and in the open a moment ago. Very, very common to see wildebeest and zebra grazing together because they utilize different parts of the same plant species, and of course any extra ears and eyes are useful to have around you as an early warning system. And zebra and wildebeest in particular are very alert animals, but beautiful to see them This one's a bit older than our baby wildebeest. It's probably about, I don't know, probably about a month and a half or 2 months. Definitely not a new baby. Amazing to see how rapidly they grow. Something that I encouraged with the baby impala, because we stop at them every day, but I think I'm going to encourage you to do it with the baby wildebeest as well. Maybe not with this baby zebra though, but that's to take screenshots of them at roughly the same distance, and you'll be able to, after a while, do a sort of a time lapse of how incredibly fast they grow, because we will be stopping with them pretty much every day for the next 2 or 3 weeks to keep an eye on them. And I'd love to see the end results of something like that. Hello, zebra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think, at the back, including baby. Mother is the individual off on the right. Oh, and there's the stallion on the left. And he will be, oh, he's fleming grimacing for us. That funny upward lip pull. One of the females urinated there a little while ago, and he's come up, he's urinated on top of where she urinated, and then doing that phlegm and grimace as a way of pulling the scent into his organ of Jacobson on the roof of his mouth. And he's focused on that smell. Up there, he's relaxed a little bit. You can always read exactly what they're up to by watching their ears. Both ears were back, and he had a look of serious concentration on his face. Now he's relaxed again. He might do it again now that he's sniffing there. Now he will be incredibly protective over that little one. Definitely the father, since zebra have their harem that they protect very fiercely. And I have seen situations where the male has fiercely defended a foal of his. Hey, little one. This little one is absolutely picture perfect. I love baby zebra. And for the moment, just standing, resting slightly in the sun. And we've got wildebeest and zebra in this incredibly peaceful. Not yet to that extent. They don't have all that far to go. And the fences are also, particularly between Mozambique and South Africa, there's a lot of people lobbying to get those fences put back up due to poaching issues. That being said, there are talks that will take more than a decade to see to fruition. But there are talks of creating enormous migration corridors for these animals. But it won't happen, in my opinion, in the next 10 years. I think it will take easily up to about 50 or so. But it's a wonderful project and something that is very much talked about and considered and debated. So that animals just like these ones can move along the natural paths like they do. Hello, little one. Now, wildebeest have the unfortunate reputation for being rather ugly and rather stupid, but they're actually one of my favorite antelope to sit and watch. And I know that Dorf was saying that has never particularly liked wildebeest before, or at least never particularly thought of them as something enjoyable to watch, and has really enjoyed spending time watching the mothers and their babies. Well, it's a pleasure, and I'm glad that we could. The wonderful thing about being out here is the longer you spend with any individual thing, whether it's an insect or an animal or one of the random antelope, is that you get to understand and see far more of their behavior. And whilst we do spend a lot of time rushing around looking for the traditionally exciting animals like leopards and lions and elephants, I'm not saying I don't enjoy spending time with them at all, I do. But sometimes it is valuable to sit and spend time and watch the dynamics play out of animals that maybe we don't really consider. And having the dubious honor that they do of being amongst the ugly seven, I think it is. That includes marabou storks and lappet-faced vultures and warthogs. I think the wildebeest have something of an unfair reputation. Zebra, of course, cannot be called ugly in anybody's books. The only thing that they do, or might be considered less than appealing, is their exceptional flatulence. But they can't help that. All that grass digestion has its results. Actually a very peaceful family scene out here. The wildebeest are enjoying the short grass stalks and the extra safety of the open spaces. The place seems to be overflowing with baby, what do they call it? Baby wildebeest and baby impala and baby zebra. But Joan, who's watching, in the UK was wondering when we will get to see baby buffaloes. And the answer is probably in the next 2 months or so. We might, if the breeding herds come up here. So the typical peak breeding season is from about January to April, which is where most of the buffalo calves are born. Some of them are born in November. But because the buffalo is such a water-dependent creature, we might actually, hello Mbala, we might actually not see them too soon unless we get some really big rains. They might start to move more towards the southern areas. The southern areas have had a bit more rain, and the rivers are starting to flow again. So the buffalo could move around there. But you never know, buffalo herds do cover enormous distances at times. They could well come and return to Djuma and Arathusa at some point, but it has been quite a while, to the best of my memory, since we last saw a large breeding herd of buffalo. They might even have 1 or 2 calves already. We just haven't seen them, to be sure. I'm going to reposition, and I want to double check and see, keep an eye on my female, see if there have been any changes in her behavior. And since we are going with the baby themed afternoon, I believe that Scott has found another baby antelope for you.
Just like we spoke about a little bit earlier, how the animals disappear out of frame just a few moments before you join us. That's exactly what happened there. But now you will get to see a few glimpses of some more really cute antelope, the Inyala. Little youngsters sandwiched in the middle of the 2 adults there. It's a magical afternoon, still very hot, not much of a breeze, and some Cape turtle doves calling around us. Found another youngster, so we've lucked out, and some wonderful views of it as it moves through that little open clearing there. Very good. Well, we are slowly making oxpeckers dust bathing just below the buffalo. That might be quite good to start on then. Take a close look at this. This is awesome. And you'll see there's some young oxpeckers that have got a dull beak, the one in the middle. So that's one of this year's new additions to the oxpecker family. And isn't it remarkable the way they fluffle and ruffle their feathers through the dust like that. And it's to try and create a protective layering against mites. It also gives their beak something to purchase on when preening through the feathers. And they've had a busy day keeping these big Cape buffalo free of ticks, or at least a lot less ticks than normal. That's what the Cape buffalo thinks about that. And isn't it awesome the way all these little mud wallows scattered through the bush often have visitors at this time of the year. It's so hot, it could be warthog, hyena, buffalo, elephants. Those are the main wallowing animals of the area. The lion and the leopard don't like to wallow too much. And Joey, aged 8, has noticed these very big horns on the heads of the Cape buffalo and is wondering how heavy they are. And Joey, they are very, very heavy. They are filled with a very solid bone, and they've got a very heavy keratin sheath, and keratin is the same substance that our fingernails and our hair is made out of, but it's quite a thick layer around the bony center, and I would guess that your average set of Cape buffalo horns will weigh probably around 50 or 60 pounds. That's why they've got such big solid necks, to be able to carry that big head of horns. Oxpeck is still enjoying the evening dust bath, getting ready for bed. Whereas quite a few other animals, the nocturnal animals, will be getting ready for a night out. And isn't that interesting how the shifts will change between the nocturnal animals and the diurnal animals, and the African bush will stay alive well into the night. Bye-bye, buffalo. Good evening to Wayne in New Orleans. Good to have you on board with us. Wayne is asking whether we see caracal and serval here. And yes, Wayne, we have seen a few glimpses of serval. We haven't managed to capture caracal on camera yet, but they do occur in the Sabi Sands. I've never seen one though in the 4.5 years that I've been here. So not an easy target, the caracal, but certainly a possibility, Wayne. Probably one of the main reasons, Wayne, is that we don't spend much time out after dark, and in an area like this, caracal will be predominantly nocturnal. Whereas in other parts of Africa where there may be less large predators, they may rule the roost during the day. Also in areas with different temperatures and climates. So it does depend on the area, and animals will act very differently. But here, caracal and serval operate mainly at night that we're aware of. And we don't spend much time out after dark because it's difficult with our current equipment to film unobtrusively or inobtrusively without interfering with the animals' ongoings. But the way technology is going, I'm sure the night vision equipment available to us will be good enough and affordable enough to become feasible, and hopefully we'll start doing more nocturnal safaris. I certainly look forward to that. This is awesome. We've got a leopard tortoise and we're kind of eye level with it, and it doesn't seem to have taken too much notice of it, and I'm hoping we're just going to be able to stop here and enjoy watching him munch on the grass. But no, I think he has caught wind of us and he's making a high-speed escape now. Don't go, we come in peace. This is a leopard tortoise and quite a large specimen. Well, it looks like it's just got to the cover that it was hoping to hide away from us in. Well done, tortoise. A great display of your speed and agility as it's galloped through that open plain. Wonderful stuff. High intensity viewing the leopard tortoise, always action-packed. and high adrenaline. Okay, well, we shall be at the sausage tree in a few minutes. I'll call you when we get there, but for now you're heading across to Jamie with the wildebeest.
It's all happening around Djuma Dam. Some sparring impalas, young rams, distracted by Franklin's calling off in the bush. And then about to make an appearance, I hope. Where's that buffalo gone? Come on, buffalo, you've got to come out this way. We've got our regular surprise visitors. When I say regular and surprise visitors, there's one buffalo drinking here. I don't think he's the one with our friends on him, though. He's got a typical red-billed oxpecker. And I'm actually going to chat quite a little bit about these oxpeckers. Oh, there's yellow. Well done, Brian. That's what I was looking for. There's our yellow-billed oxpecker. Well, there's two of them that we see fairly regularly. That one just poked its head out over. And now on the other side of the buffalo. Now, why we get so excited about yellow-billed oxpeckers is because they're exceptionally rare, and they were at one point critically endangered, slowly starting to make an appearance, or the numbers are starting to increase again due to serious conservation efforts. But we don't see them nearly as often as we see the red-billed oxpeckers. And that bill stands out so strikingly when you are used to seeing the red-billed oxpeckers. Also a little bit bigger and a little bit bulkier than the red-bills. And what we have just seen, although it's flown away now, was one of the wildebeest calves with what appeared to be its first ever experience with an oxpecker. Oh, impala rams are at it again. They're butting heads. Oh. That was hugely inconsiderate, you two. There we go. Very gentle, very half-hearted sparring. In fact, that one just yawned in the middle of it. Oh, I'm still keeping an eye on our pregnant female. We're still staying with her. And in the meantime, Scotty has a monkey to show you, so let's head across to him.
Now, if you look closely, you'll see one of our cousins sitting up in this leadwood tree. There you are. The vervet monkey, or green monkey. It is part of a troop. Difficult to see. They're all kind of hidden in various parts of this tree. Looks like they may be feeding on some of the fruits within there. Oh, we have spotted another one. And that you can clearly see is a male. He's got his bright blue package dangling off the branch there. Quite a unique setup of the vervet monkey. Jan has just asked why did come in and spend a couple of months here, or about a couple of weeks here rather, but since then no more baboon action, although there was tracks of one male and one male seen heading past our camp just the other day, just I think yesterday or the day before. So there's a rogue baboon running around Jan, a couple of troops of vervet monkeys, but not too many primates, and I do not have a clue what the reason could be for that. It's bizarre, because they are all around the Sabi Sands. It's not nearby to us. Let's see if we can get you some closer views. There should be some babies at this time of the year, and I think I may have just seen one. Let's hope Mom doesn't run away. Have we got this one here? I think that's who we want. we're in luck. Got it there, VM. Spot on. Now, you'll see there's a tiny little arm or two clambering onto mom. And the youngster could very well be suckling at the moment. This is such a great view. And if we're patient, I'm sure we're going to get a few better glimpses of this tiny little newborn. An African hoopoo calling next to us. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. And the mother's just taking some time to reflect, looking over the savannah, thinking about her day. She doesn't look hugely impressed, holding on to her toes as she sits there, but it's tiring business being a mother out here, and she's probably looking forward to a good night's rest. It's a great animal for us to be spending some time with at this stage of the evening, because they could provide us with some useful intelligence. If a leopard it's probably the male with very impressive appendages was sitting right at the tip top of the tree. He's taking care of his troop, and by being right at the top he can get the best possible vantage point. Come on, little baby, move around. We've got a lot of people that are desperate to see you. I have the feeling though that it's gently snoozing whilst suckling on some of mum's milk. You can see very small flowers or fluorescences just to the right of the monkey's head, and that's probably what the monkeys have been snacking on just before they went to bed. Now you can see a lot as VM has pulled focus. You can also see quite a few bugs flitzing about this tree, pollinating all those different flowers. So it's all happening here in the summer months. The bush is alive, the babies are being born. You're going to get to see a baby wildebeest being born shortly with Jamie. She's been spending the whole afternoon there patiently, hoping to share that incredible moment with you. You can see the two arms of a baby monkey suckling on its mother. Sadly, not much more than that. But what a wonderful evening it is, and it's great to be on this live safari with all of you. I think we should keep the wind blowing through our hair. And Jamie's got some more babies that she would like to show you while we try to continue our way on to Jeffrey Sausage Tree.
About 2 seconds ago, we had a really nice view of some impala lambs to continue with our baby theme of the afternoon. Now we have a view of a bottom, and a couple of legs, and one tiny little baby behind the bushes. Now they're right next to the wildebeest, and I'm really hoping that at some point there might be some interaction between the two babies. And I think that might be wishful thinking on my part. How cool is it that in an hour and a half, we have moved we've driven maybe 700 meters, and that's a push, not counting the circles that we've done. And yet we've had the most incredible time with just watching general game, and I've really, really enjoyed the interaction that's happening here in this open spot. Hello. Just as cute as baby wildebeest, and not something you can ever get bored of. Starting to form their nursery groups more and more clearly now, and associating less directly with their mothers. Wow. Awesome question from a class in Illinois that's been working on Sherlock Holmes and mysteries. And they wanted to know what I think that the biggest mystery in nature is. Wow, that's an interesting question. The biggest mystery in nature. I mean, when we sit and we watch these baby impalas and think that this is a process that has happened year after year for the last 200 million years, the effect is something that's absolutely mind-boggling to me. What is the biggest mystery in nature? You guys will have to give me a bit longer to think about it. I'm going to think about it and get back to you, because there are so many magical unanswered questions, and I think that's maybe one of my favorite parts about this place, is that every time I head out, I find a new question that doesn't necessarily have the right answer to it. Why, for example, has the impala design been as successful as it has? Why are they the most numerous antelope out here? What is it about the combination of their size, their color, their reproduction? And is it to help them follow each other during a chase and to produce that scent? Or do they have a different mysterious purpose? Why do they have black stripes on their bottom? How do the lambs know exactly what to do from the day they're born? From the minute born, they know to start struggling to stand up. I think that there are so many unanswered questions in nature that it's probably what it makes it the most incredible aspect of it. And the fascinating thing, of course, is that I seriously doubt that the impalas sit in paroxysms of self-analysis and deep questioning. They get on with life and exist and leave the questions to us. But I don't know that. Maybe they do. Maybe they have moments of self-identity crises and all those other human aspects that we have. I doubt it, though. I think they're far too busy surviving. Meh. Little one's also making a noise. Okay, impalas. I think time to leave you. Let's go find some other mysteries of the bush. And I'm thinking specifically, of course, the biggest mystery that's on my mind at the moment is that wildebeest going to give birth, and when? We have all the evidence, we have all the clues. She's big, she's panting. The water hasn't broken yet, so we know it's not immediate, or at least as far when we last checked, of course. She's slightly separate from the group. Miles, I'm glad you're enjoying the baby theme that we have going on this afternoon. It was not intentional, really, on my part. I really just wanted to go and follow up with that baby wildebeest that was born this morning. And then that other female. The other female attracted my attention, and since then, I have to be honest, I haven't been able to bring myself to leave them, just because it has proved to be both illuminating and fascinating. And just sitting here, I've thirdly, when they go drink, they do get separated from their mother, because they get overly playful. And fourth, they spend quite a lot of time resting while their mothers graze, and that they do interact with other members of the herd, and that the females are incredibly protective excuse me, of their own babies at the expense of other wildebeest. They'll chase other wildebeest away. Well done, little one, for finding mom. Dylan's very valid point as to one of the biggest mysteries of nature. When I look at these wildebeest babies, and I think of the fact that they're up and about within 5 minutes of their birth, wandering around, running around, able to escape predators. They know exactly what to do. And then we look at humans. That being said, there are lots of definitions of successful. We've certainly become the most dominant in terms of our effects being felt out here. I don't know how much of a success we've made of it in places. Rich? I don't know. Another mystery raised. Why are some animals territorial and some either nomadic or migratory? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm sure there are lots of theories as to the answer, but we may never know why that is the case. I've thought of another major mystery. Why are spotted hyena females bigger than the males? Nobody knows the answer to that. These wildebeest. Why have zebra evolved to have harem structures? Where the male protects and guards a group of females, and why have wildebeest evolved to have a territorial male that instead of protecting a harem, protects a territory, just waiting for females to come and go? There's another mystery for us while we sit and watch both of those animals. Never stop asking those. If our live safaris bring you nothing else but questions, then I think we've done our jobs right. There are far more questions out here than I ever have answers to. There's some impala fighting up there. I wondered what that noise was. Look at that in the dust. That is incredibly beautiful. But going their separate ways again. Whilst I reposition to try and find our favourite pregnant female and see if anything's changed, Scott has been off the vehicle looking around and he's happened upon a snakeskin.
Well, VM found a black mamba for us this morning, and now he has found something quite similar. A snakeskin. And as he zooms in, you'll get to see some beautiful shots of all the different little scales. The skin is in perfect condition. And isn't it a remarkable thing? Imagine peeling off your entire skin as you grow and leaving it behind. Snakes like to do this using thorn trees, understandably, because it helps to snag the skin. Here you can see a little portion of the head. Closer to the sausage tree, Jeffrey. And in the next 30 seconds or so, we should be there. It's just up ahead of us. And it's going to be a beautiful stage of the evening to sit there and see what's going on. I'm not too sure when the sausage trees flower. I think they may have even flowered already. But time will tell. Let's go and take a closer look. To Sandy, who's watching in Tennessee. And Sandy's interested to know why we haven't seen many jackal running around. Do we get them here? And yes, Sandy, we get both the side-striped jackal, which is actually less common throughout southern Africa, and we also get the black-backed jackal, which is typically more common through South Africa. But in this specific area in the Sabi Sands, we seem to see more side-striped than black-backed. So it's kind of a unique reverse compared to what the rest of the country usually sees. And I guess the reason why we don't see too many of them is because of the high predator density. Lion and leopard will kill jackal at any opportunity, and in this thick vegetation, the jackals don't stand a chance and often get ambushed by them. Whereas in more open areas, like in the Masai Mara of Kenya, wily little jackals got less chance of being ambushed by lion and leopard, so they tend to do better in open areas. That's my theory, at least. Okay, we just need to go down this little dip here, and then the sausage tree will be in view. The sun is going to be directly behind it, which is going to make... Actually, we'll be able to make a plan. Let's get the sun in our favor. The sausages grow from a long kind of downward tendril or growth. So it almost looks like a piece of spaghetti dangling down. And I take a close look and see if we can't spot any sausages or the beginning of them. They look basically like a big about as thick as your average human's calf or knee. So very heavy. You wouldn't want one of them to fall onto your head, the sausages of the sausage tree. Not too many animals feed on them here, but in a drought like this, elephants could probably chomp on them to get moisture. So I'm sorry, Jeffrey, it's not looking very promising here at the sausage tree, but that could change and develop. I, for some reason, think I've already seen it flowering quite early on in the summer, but maybe I'm losing my mind. That is also highly possible in this baking heat. Good, well, I don't think there's much more to see here, sadly, Jeffrey, so let's carry on. And the next destination is the Treehouse Waterhole. where we are going to find Karula hunting. That's my prediction. Some of you may believe otherwise. Heidi raises a good point, one that I often always think about, Heidi, and that is how the snake skins don't break. You'd think they'd be more brittle. And I guess, Heidi, what you need to remember is that as they come off the snake, they are going to be quite moist and have a little bit more kind of give, whereas once they've been baking in the African sun off the body of the snake, they'll dry up and become quite brittle. So they do certainly become brittle, but I think when the snake is shedding, they are a little bit tougher. Good point then. It is something that, like I said, I often also think about. Great to hear from Dylan in Cedar Falls, and it sounds like Dylan's about to finish a degree very soon and is wondering whether it would be possible that he could come out here and train up to be a safari, which usually takes only about 6 months, and then obviously start learning the ins and outs of the industry. It takes many more years to become an expert. I certainly don't consider myself one yet. There's so much to learn out here that, like I said, 20 to 25 years would be a entertaining people, which is an important part of the job, the most pivotal part of the job, then it certainly is worth coming out. And I know lots of people from various countries outside of South Africa, many miles away, that have come out and worked as safari guides. One of my good friends was born in France and studied there, fully French, and he's working in the Southern Sabi Sands now. Another German guy that came out. An American lady that came out and did it. So there's nothing stopping anyone, any age, any gender, coming out and searching for fun times and good sightseeings out in Africa. So Dylan, good luck with finishing off your degree, and your probably hardest thing to do now will be convincing your parents that it's a good idea. If you need help, I'll assist, and hopefully we'll see you out here in a few months. Okay, well, we are going to continue the search for Karula. I'm feeling lucky. It's that stage of the evening now that it's cooled down, things are looking good, and while we continue doing that, we're going to send you across to Jamie for an update on the wildebeest.
I'm not sure if this is our female that we've been watching the whole time, but she's definitely also heavily pregnant. But doesn't seem quite so distracted now feeding as it gets a little bit cooler. Now, I know that we've spoken about the wildebeest and the fact that it's really interesting to spend as much time with a species that we don't usually look at, and as much time as we have. They may not be the most beautiful creatures on earth, but even looking at her, heavily pregnant as she is, that is an animal highly adapted for the lifestyle that it leads. Those powerful shoulders mean that they can run. They've got incredible stamina and incredible speed, And the fact that they can survive in the world they do and still give birth and raise successful offspring is a testament to millions of years worth of biological engineering. They're all part of the same family that actually has the fastest antelope species in it. So the hartebeest family, within that family there's the wildebeest, the hartebeest, and the sesame. And the sesame is the fastest animal out here, with probably the longest distance covering as well. There's a word for that, Jamie. It's called stamina. There we go. Got there eventually. Highest levels of it's just, the sun's starting to go down. Well, we've been watching in the hope that one of these very, very pregnant females might give birth to these adorable little calves that we've been watching. And Penny, who is 7 years old, Penny, no, not all of the animals give birth now, but a lot of the animals give birth around this time. So especially impala and the wildebeest that we're watching, they give birth very specifically at this time of year. Other animals like lions and leopards, even giraffe, will give birth throughout the year. But there's definitely a peak breeding time. When the rains start to come, there's more food. So that's when most of the babies are born, even with those baby hyenas that we've been watching. Oh, somebody's going to try and have a snack. I love watching this. They splay their legs to the side as if bracing themselves for the activity of eating, and then every now and again give mom a very solid headbutt to stimulate her milk production, just in case, she forgets. And we see it with all antelope species, but particularly with their long legs, they've sort of got to get right down so they can tuck their heads underneath mom. And although you can't see it too clearly, she's at the same time giving her calf a very affectionate bath while it feeds. And a baby like this is a huge investment for a mother. A year's worth of pregnancy, or almost a year's worth of pregnancy. Close to 9 months worth. And surviving as long as they do, feeling exceptionally pregnant, passing on all of their own nutrients to their babies. Now, we saw that baby zebra earlier, and what's interesting as a contrast between baby wildebeest and baby zebra, you done, little one, on your wobbly legs. Well, baby zebra, in order to boost up their antibodies and their immunity, they will eat their mother's dung. I've never seen wildebeest calves do it, though. Now, just discussing zebra and wildebeest, Amity wanted to know if these animals that we've been looking at are related to horses. And yes, to an extent they are, but quite far back, so they're not closely related. Now, they are both herbivores and both adapted for running, but in the case of the wildebeest, Amity, the wildebeest have hooves that split into twos. So they're two-toed animals, an even-toed ungulate, whereas horses only have one hoof, so one toe, which makes them an odd-toed ungulate. You're an even-toed ungulate, by the way, Buffalo, just on that subject. So Amity, the closest relative to a horse out here is not the buffalo or the wildebeest, but it is the zebra. that we were watching earlier. Sorry, I had to draw attention to him just because he was watching my explanation of the number of toes he has so closely. Probably not understanding a word of it, of course. Sure. Been through the wars, that one. Lots of bald patches and very ratty looking ears. Hey, buffalo. You hanging out with the wildebeest. But don't worry, Gracie's keeping an eye on you, and if you misbehave with any calves, she'll be sending Brent. But horses and zebra don't do that. They are hindgut fermenters. So they digest in their intestines, which means that they fart a lot for a start. But also, if you're familiar with horses, if you spend a lot of time with horses, Amini, have a look at their dung and you'll see how coarse it is and how there's big bits of their food still in it. That you won't find in the dung of cows or antelope. Now, this is a very difficult time for the wildebeest calves. It is very, very dangerous, and this is where they are at most at risk. And ask me, you were wondering, first of all, what the survival rate is of these calves. In the Kruger National Park, with the high density of... Hey, buffalo, why are you chasing the wildebeest? Sure. That was totally took me by surprise. He just went for the wildebeest. They got too much in his space. Buffalo bulls, you can see why I've chatted about them many times as being one of the grumpiest animals we get out here. Now, buffalo is an unusual threat to a wildebeest calf, although it still counts, because they are more than capable of killing a calf if they wanted to, but that would be very unlikely. Let's just follow this and watch this situation play out, because now they're approaching very deliberately. But while I do, Ask Me was wondering about the survival rate of calves. I would say the mortality rate is exceptionally high, especially in areas like this one with high leopard and lion densities. And wild dog as well will also put a huge dent in wildebeest numbers. I'd be guessing, but I'd say that a 50% survival rate would be optimistic for these calves. There are just so many threats out here. Then in terms of how old wildebeest get, I'm going to just double check that number for you. I would say 10 years old would be a very old wildebeest. That's probably one of the highest averages, or one of the highest ages that they could reach. The average is probably around 6 or 7, maybe 8, but I'm going to double check that for you. Because I'm not 100% sure. Look how they run. It's incredible. The problem with any kind of herd situation like this is that as soon as one animal startles, even at an imagined noise, then the rest of them start to run as well. Although you do get the odd smart one staying behind. This, I think, is our female in the sub-adult that we've been watching. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the case. Now she is, whoever she is, she's heavily pregnant, and Monique was wondering whether or not predators would target the pregnant females because they're slower. And yes, absolutely they would. Plus it is essentially an extra meal in one. And the females cannot keep up with the rest of the herd. They're hot, they're heavy, and they tire far faster. What is impala alarm calling at? The wildebeest are now running. They're all running. In fact, this whole herd is running away. What are we missing? They're moving away from the area. Let's just do a quick loop. Maybe there's something like a hyena or something around here. An impala call definitely came from the left. Hey, Brian. Definitely around that side. Let's go check. I think personally it was a rather confused impala, but let's just see, because there's a very good chance it was alarm calling at something else. There's a nyala there as well. So if it were a leopard or a lion, it would definitely be more on alert. And there's a group of young males here that aren't paying any attention at all. There's a whole herd of very relaxed animals here. I think it was just one confused impala. That does happen. As I said, in herd situations, it just takes one panicked creature to make an alarm call, and the rest of them follow, particularly when they've got young involved. If there was a serious threat, then we'd be hearing more alarm calls, and all of the animals would be facing in one direction. These young rams are completely relaxed. There's more nyala and impala off to the left of us that are also quite happily still feeding. So I think that was the case of the impala that cried leopard. Okay. Well, I'm going to reposition to try and find our pregnant wildebeest now that they've all gone scattering off towards quarantine. And in the meantime, let's find out what Scott has been up to.
Welcome onto the sunset cloud cruise, and what a beautiful evening it is, as I'm sure you have been seeing up on the quarantine clearings with Jamie and a host of different animals up there. But it sounds like the wildebeest continue to entertain. Now, as we pass by big trees like this on the right, scan carefully. We could find a leopard upstairs, and on a hot evening like this, they would enjoy sleeping on the horizontal branches of these marula trees. Nothing here, but always it's good to check. I'll never forget tracking a female leopard in the southern Sabi sands, and both my tracker, myself, and all my guests were so focused on the road following her footprints that we drove straight underneath her. She was sleeping in a tree literally overhanging the road, and another vehicle that was also following up on the track of this leopard came into the area 5 minutes later, and there she was directly overhead where we drove. So a lesson to be learnt there: whilst tracking, always keep your head up every now and then. Look around, not only for the animal you're looking for, but also for any other potentially dangerous animals. Nothing here. it sounds like there's a whole new class of kids watching the safari, and it's so good to have you guys on this live safari with us. And it's 3 million hectares in size. The animals can roam free and far. And isn't it wonderful to know that there are such big wilderness areas that animals can still live their lives on with very little interference from us as humans. You've all got to thank your teacher for letting you join in on the safari action. Oh, an owl, I think, just took off. We've just seen an owl. It's probably going to land in that tree. Oh, yeah, it just landed up there. I'm not sure if it is an owl, though. But it's definitely a bird of prey, a hunting bird. And it looks like it may have even had a kill. Let's try and get a little bit closer. I'm not too sure from here what it is. We're quite a long way away. Wasn't that exciting? Let's try and work out what it's called. Another good question that's also come through from the same class in Canada, from Anime, and she would like to know, or he would like to know, who built these roads? And there was a tractor that would have come here many, many years ago and decided where to make these roads. And that's a good question. It was long before we got you, though. There we go. What is it? It looks like it could be a steppe buzzard. Another one of our migratory birds that have come from very, very far away, all the way in the northern hemisphere in Russia. I can't make out if it's got a kill or not. It doesn't look like it from this angle. I'm not sure if you guys can see anything. And maybe it's just looking for a place to spend the night. There's another bird called a babbler that you can hear calling. And they make a real racket, these birds called babblers. You might be able to get a glimpse of them, Liam. They're flying around just... There we go. Liam's an eagle eye, and doesn't take him long to find what we're looking for. So that is the bird that you can hear. Nature. They're both very old. The mother's 11 years old and the daughter is 9. Not very, very old, but they're both grown-ups now. To Darlene in New Hampshire, who would like to know if leopard have got similar tendencies to tigers and jaguars, and that do they like swimming? And no, they despise it and do everything possible to not get their feet wet, which is interesting stuff. But both leopards, lions, and even cheetah do not really enjoy getting wet and will avoid it at all costs, whereas hyena and wild dog are happy to wet themselves, go into mud wallows on these hot summer days. hello to Cole. Also in Canada. And just a whole class of grade 3s. I wish I was your age again at school. It's lots of fun, but I really wish that my teacher let me watch safaris, Cole. So good to have you with us. And Cole has asked a very good question. He would like to know, where are all the animals hiding? I do not know the answer to your question. I think quite a few of them are with Jamie at the moment. She's got the wildebeest and some zebra earlier, impala. So she's seeing a few animals. But Cole, it's important that animals have got a very, very big area in which to live. And that means there's lots of food for them to eat. If we saw animals everywhere, it would mean that there simply isn't enough food for them, and they wouldn't be able to move around and eat other plants and eat other animals. So animals need a lot of space to be able to live. And every safari is different, Cole. Some days you get lucky and every corner you turn around there's lots of animals, lots of elephants, lots of buffalo, lions, leopards, you name it. And then other days you'll just see the beautiful scenery and the trees and the sunset and the clouds and the birds and the beetles and the bugs, all very important. It's definitely not just about the big animals. Obviously everybody loves the lion and the elephants, but it's also important to learn about the small animals, because if it wasn't for all the small animals out here, the big animals wouldn't have the home that they live in. Everybody plays their special part in making this a wonderful, wonderful home for everything that you can see. So they all play their role. And we found some impala, so this is where some of the animals are hiding. It looks like a herd of old men. Hello, boys. Now, the males have got horns and the females don't. And a very important lesson for our new class of grade 3s in Canada is that in Africa, none of the animals that we see have got antlers. They all have got horns. And there's a very big difference between antlers and horns. Horns will grow throughout the life of this impala, whereas antlers will grow every year and then fall off at the end of every rutting season on all of the deer that you'll see up in Canada. As the impala nibbles on the grass. It's a good time of the evening just to sit, stop driving around and try and listen. Now, a lot of people think that by driving around and searching more places, you increase your chance of finding animals, and it's definitely a good theory and not a bad option, but it's important to remember that the bush here is so thick, and it would be very easy for you to drive past many, many animals that would be hidden just off the road. But if you stop and if you listen, you can sometimes get clues from animals like these impala. If they see a leopard, they'll let out these loud snorting barks that will help us to rush into an area and start searching for the leopard. And I'm really, really hoping that you and her and Brian all get lucky and let's all have happy thoughts, and over you go.
And so far, no sign of a birth, but I definitely don't regret spending the entire afternoon with this incredible herd of wildebeest. It's given me personally a new insight and a new level of affection for these wonderful creatures. It's also been incredibly peaceful to just sit and watch the interaction. The only thing that's disturbed the 6 little calves is those buffalo that have stayed with the herd and stayed following the herd, but every now and again go and chase them for absolutely no apparent reason. Just sheer grumpiness. Totally uncalled for, and yet it seems to be what they're up to. And Gracie, who's 8 years old, is going to tell Santa that the buffalo have not been behaving, that they've been bad, and I'm sure that he will act upon that. And I will tell Brent that they have been up to no good. I'll let him know. I'm not sure why they're doing it. It is something in Duggar boys, these grumpy old gentlemen, that makes them exceptionally grumpy. Now he's moving towards that little calf that's lying down. Stop to have a look at us. I wonder how this situation is going to play out. He's keeping an eye on us, and hopefully Mom is watching her baby and the safety of it. The horns of those buffalo are incredibly powerful weapons. Oh, no, don't. Come on, baby. Get up, up. Up faster. Ooh. Don't like this at all. Yes, move away. Sure. I actually got genuinely nervous there. We know that the buffalo do go for them. We don't know why. And that little one, oopsie, is on his head, and you were wondering why they have them. And the answer, there's 2 different answers for that. One is it serves as a very important weapon against predators. So a buffalo can send a lion flying. He could also have butted that little wildebeest calf if he'd wanted to. But there's another reason, and that reason is that they can be used for competition with another male for access to the female. Now, what's really interesting is that some antelope species, both the females and the males have horns, whereas in some antelope species only the males have horns. Now for the wildebeest, the females and buffalo actually, so that's why the females have horns. But if you look at something like an unyala or kudu, an animal that hides away in the bush, the females don't need to have horns because they rely on their camouflage and their speed of hiding. But the males still need those horns because they still need to compete with other males of the same species in order to mate with the females. So there's 2 different reasons why these animals have horns. Now zebra, of course, don't have either of those things, but zebra are not to be underestimated in any way. They can kick very hard, and their front incisors are slightly forward-facing and very, very sharp. So their front teeth, and they can bite. I would not want to be bitten by a zebra, I can promise you that. Very often you see zebras without tails, and that hasn't come from a lucky escape. Most of the time that hasn't come from a lucky escape from a lion or a hyena. that's because it's been bitten by another zebra, and they can sever it right through the bone. So just because they don't have horns doesn't mean they are without weapons. Now, the zebra, of course, is famous for its stripy coat, but a lot of the antelope species out here do have vertical stripes to some extent. The wildebeest do. We've been spending a bit of time with them, and we've seen how those slightly dark stripes have come down. Oh, he's going for the... Oh, those buffalo. They are so mean. What is your problem, dude? Why are you following the herd if they're bugging you? That's fascinating. I wonder what the reason behind that behavior is. I can understand if they were competing for the same resources, or if the wildebeest were in the buffalo's space, but he's followed them the whole time. And he's gone and chased them again. Bizarre. Grumpy, grumpy, grumpy buffalo. Shame, man. You'd think that the wildebeest have enough on their plate without having to deal with errant buffalo bulls trying to assert their dominance around here. Well, there you go. There's the vertical stripes. Sorry, I got distracted by that crazy buffalo behavior. But there's the vertical stripes that Daniel wanted to know about. He wanted to know why so many of the antelope have stripes, and whether maybe it possibly makes them look slightly thinner and therefore not appetizing to the prey or to the predators. I think what it's more appropriate for, although that is an option I've never considered, and it's an interesting one to think about, so it's a possibility, but generally the answer is that it serves as disruptive coloration, so it breaks up the outline of the animal. Not behind bushes, especially with kudu and inyala, you'll notice how those white stripes just break up the coloring, especially they're tussling with each other, but not in the same way that with the same level of aggression that they went for the wildebeest. This buffalo is not injured. I can't see any injuries on them. They're not thin. They're in perfectly good condition. I guess what it might be as well is that the fact that there has been this drought and all of the animals are under pressure for access to water and access to resources, it might just put everything on edge that little extra bit. Now, I know many of you will have heard about that elephant who attacked the buffalo bull, seemingly without any provocation. So there may be something in the theory that the drought is putting them under pressure and just making them that little bit more aggressive. But why they should choose to take it out of a wildebeest herd, I'm not sure. It's not uncommon, though. Buffalo bulls are known for that behavior. Maybe even the smell of the pregnancy hormones, that estrogen, is also causing a little bit of disruption in their lives. Well, I'm glad they're taking it out on each other now. No, we nearly saw that buffalo go for that young wildebeest calf. It was very close. It was approaching it curiously, and I was genuinely concerned, because it was so wobbly, that it wasn't going to get up in time. Ooh. Some serious fighting going on there. Monique, who's watching in London, Monique, you were wondering whether it wouldn't be better for the wildebeest to have their calves during the morning so that the calf has the whole day to start to get up and strengthen its legs. And yes, I agree with you. I think that the best time for birth is in the morning. And I think even now, we might have reached the point where it's certainly too late for us to sit and watch a birth now. And that's just because I can't shine a light on the herd. So these last few moments will be the last few moments that we can spend with them. Sorry, excuse me. It's the plague. But that being said, I think that the afternoon, those calves get up and start to run within half an hour of their birth. So even now would be okay. Hopefully there's not too much moving around. I've just been discussing it with Brian, and even though the sun has set, the temperature certainly hasn't dropped, in my opinion. And in fact, the sort of combined 3 hours of being out this afternoon in the humidity has given the impression of us slowly being steam cooked. Now they're still butting heads, quite literally. And Fiona, you were wondering if the reason that Duggar boys are so grumpy is because they do not have the same access to females as they used to, and therefore their testosterone levels are high with no outlet. Oh, now the zebras are. What are you doing, zebras? That was just a short tussle. Sure. Tension in the... There we go. And again. What's happening there? That might even be courting behavior, possibly. Because there's no kicking there from the animal in response. It's almost affectionate, that level of contact. Oh, and the buffalo are at it again. Fiona, breeding herd, but out on their own like this, or in pairs, or in slightly smaller of lions, and the fact that they will show preference for big buffaloes like this when there's a couple of big male lions about. So I think it's that combination, and I think also during the drought at the moment, access to water. We're seeing them tussle a lot like this. Luckily they're keeping each other distracted, so they're completely ignoring the wildebeest herd now. One thing I do want to do is reposition so you can say goodbye to the wildebeest calves. It is getting very dark. It'll be our last opportunity to see them for the evening. Let me just reposition so that you can see them one last time. And I think tomorrow there's a good chance we will have a 7th member of this little group. There are 6 calves at the moment. We'll just have to wait and see on the sunrise safari how many there are in the morning. Hey, little ones. The fence, by the way, belongs to the landowner's house and is very close to FC. All right, little wildebeests, good luck for the night ahead. I wish you all the best. And safety and security. Stay away from buffalo. They're grumpy. And well done, little one, on making it through your first day of life. Hopefully it'll get easier. All right, I'm going to move on and see what else I can find for the last few moments of our sunset safari, since I can't spotlight this group. let's head across to Scott and see what he's been up to.
Well, I do commend Jamie and Brian and all of you on your patience in the hope that you would get to see the wildebeest giving birth. I think a good investment, and I think it's going to increase everybody's likelihood of being fortunate enough to see that wonderful event. Maybe tomorrow morning. VM and myself have been sitting with this herd of impala who are getting ready for bed. They like to sleep out in open clearings at night because it's difficult for predators to creep up on them when there's nothing to hide behind. So they're going to sleep out here this evening. Not too much cover for the predators. Now, you may have heard a funny noise. Oops. And that was from this bird called the black-bellied bustard. Now watch closely. It could well do the call again. Looks like it's actually getting ready to call right now. The end, and this black-bellied bustard is trying to attract some mates. And it is that time of the year, just like we've seen a few baby impala, the baby wildebeest, the birds are also making babies at this time of the year, and that's because there's so much food around for them, which makes raising their young a lot easier. The winter months are dry and harsh here in South Africa, with not too much food and water available for most of the animals. Okay. Now it's time to get the old spotlight out and see what we can find. We're looking for the reflection from animals' eyes, or even simply a strange shape in the tree that could show us a chameleon or a snake. But it's mainly the reflection of eyes we're looking for. Hello Matty, and very happy to hear you've watched the highlights of the black mamba sighting and you enjoyed it. Sorry you didn't see that live with us, but like I said, you did get to see it, and wasn't it exciting? Now Matty has asked, what would I have done had that snake had slithered into the vehicle? And there was a moment, Matty, where I really did think the snake may come into the vehicle, or at least underneath the vehicle to hide. And that has happened to me before with the Mozambican spitting cobra that I'd caught in a camp, and then I'd taken it out to release it, and I released it too close to the vehicle and it slithered straight underneath into all the pipes and poles and working equipment that was very difficult to get out of. But thankfully the black mamba didn't. If it had, you probably would have seen VM and myself jump out of the vehicle and run off. Literally, I think that would have happened. So, good question. And at the end there, it was very close to us. It was probably only about 1.5 meters away, Matty. So really exciting stuff. And again, well done to VM, who spotted it. To Deanna in Michigan, and Deanna's interested to know a little bit about horse safaris and whether I've ever done a horseback safari. And yes, I have been lucky enough to do that. I worked in a ranch in Kenya that overlooked Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. A beautiful, beautiful place called the Chulu Hills, and it was there where we would take our guests out on horseback safaris if they wanted to. We had 24 different horses, and it was quite an operation. So there I did quite a few horseback safaris, and as you've pointed out, the horses do need to be very, very well trained and not skittish and nervous of lion and elephants and other animals. And they are trained by the professional sizers to encounter lion and to encounter elephant before you put guests onto them. Guests obviously also need to have a certain level of training, and all of the guests were put through a kind of test to see how competent they were, and then depending on their competency, they would be led into sightings and areas that their ability could kind of tolerate and cope with. Great fun and a wonderful thing to do, horseback safaris. I'm terrible at riding horses, but love horseback safaris. You can get really in and amongst a lot of the herds and plains animal like zebra, wildebeest, giraffe, and literally run alongside them, which is quite mind-boggling. So yes, lots of places to do it in Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Botswana. Most African countries do offer horseback safaris. Very exciting stuff, but again, you don't want to be doing your first horse riding lesson on the open plains in Africa. I wouldn't suggest that. Karula, Tingana, Mvula, Shadow, where are you? Those are the leopards that we are likely to bump into. Just spotted something here, looks like a chameleon. Yeah. It's a little chameleon. And here's just a little bit above it. There we go, you spot on. And look at how well camouflaged it is in there. Now, just to give you an idea, once we have had a closer look at it, I'm going to reverse and show you what I saw when I initially spotted it, because it is a little bit easier than you expect it to be. And basically, this quarry bush that it's sitting in, look at that eye wiggling about, keeping an eye on us. Awesome. This quarry bush that it's sitting in has got quite dark green leaves, and as I reverse, which I'm going to do now, we're going to say goodbye and leave this little chameleon in peace. And I shine on the tree. It might be difficult to see with the lighting. Oh, I'm going to try and simulate this as best as I can. Oh, there you can see there's a very white patch. And that's what the chameleon is. So that's what I was looking for. And it's actually quite nice for VM to actually zoom in again like that. And then blur your focus and you'll see how much that chameleon sticks out once VM blurs the focus. So it's a very distinctly different white patch. And then as he focuses in, that's where the chameleon is. So you're looking for a different shade or tone in comparison to the rest of the tree. And it sticks out as clear as day. So that's a safari secret that you shouldn't make when you come out here. You shouldn't be too mesmerized by anyone who finds you a chameleon, although it is a good trick. Okay, well, Jamie would like to say goodbye to all of you, and then I'll have the last few minutes of safari where I am hoping to find you either a scorpion, a bush baby, or a leopard. Those are the three, or a snake. Those are the four things that I hope we will have on screen for you. Over to Jamie.
Guys, it's been an incredible afternoon. I personally have really enjoyed every moment of it spent with such interesting creatures, and I hope that you have as well. So often on these live drives we spend hours with things like leopards and lions and hyenas, but sometimes it's important to remember the often forgotten animals that inhabit the kingdom and are possibly just as interesting and just full of their own dramas and comings and goings as the other big five and hairy and scaries and all of those creatures. Really enjoyable afternoon. We didn't get to see our live birth, but I'm not particularly devastated by that at all. I think that by tomorrow morning there's a very good chance there will be a new member of the wildebeest herd. by the end of the season there'll be at least 9 calves to be watching. Definitely the promise of summer has come into fruition despite the drought. Definitely enjoyable. Well, thank you for all of your definitely deep and soul-searching questions this afternoon. I have enjoyed them all. And a big thank you, of course, as always, to Brian, as well as to Scott for providing us with variety and for his fantastic camera work. Thank you, Kirst, and thank you, Lou, and thank you to you all. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye, everyone.
So, out of the large spread of animals I was hoping to find you, I have come up with nothing, but not over yet. And while we continue down this windy dirt road, I would like to say a very big thank you for all of the questions that you guys sent through. Apologies if we didn't answer your questions, but keep trying. And also welcome again to that whole class of grade 3s in Canada. I hope you're still watching. If you are, keep begging your teacher to let you watch. We'll be very happy with that. And it's always good to have you guys along with us every step of the way. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is just stop and let you listen for the last few seconds. And the only person I haven't thanked is VM on camera, so thank you, VM, and goodbye, everyone. Join in tomorrow for the Sunset Safari. The lions need to come and visit, and I think it'll be tomorrow. Enjoy the silence.